CertainlyT is terrible at champion design because he seems to treat champion design like a challenge. But the problem is that, like, anyone who actually learns his new champions, like, what's even the right way to put it? CertainlyT has a track record of making the worst characters in League of Legends. And instead of, like, reining him in, instead of, like, you know, stopping him, they just let him keep pumping shit out. Like, he did the Mord rework, which had to be reworked again. He did the Graves rework, huge balance issue. Did the Caitlyn rework, huge balance issue. Did the Akali rework, one of the worst balance issues of all time. Did the Zoe, terrible champion, had to be nerfed out of existence. Did Kalista, terrible champion, had to be nerfed out of existence. He did Thresh, huge balance issue. I think it's been like the highest pick support since he was created. Literally just created a support and was like, what if he's the best at everything? He did Zed, had to be reworked. He did Zyra, had to be reworked. He did Darius, had to be reworked. And we don't a lot of people like his champs, like Yasuo and Darius. Darius isn't his anymore. It got reworked. As for Yasuo, that is the singular example of his champion design. And Yasuo has been broken so many times. As a designer, he's terrible. Like, factually, he's terrible. I don't think there's really a way to argue that, honestly. I used to think like, oh yeah, no, he does like a decent job, but lately, and by lately I mean like the last 5 years, it like legitimately feels like he's trying to spite the player base. His champs are the ones I like, LOL. I want more with the high skill ceiling kits rather than point and click stuff. The problem is then you get Akali. And Akali, legit, I don't think Akali will ever be balanced. I think she will permanently be overpowered and permanently be pick banned competitively forever. I truly don't believe that champion will ever reach a balanced state. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't actually make fun champions. People say, oh, he makes fun champions, though, Hashinshin. Oh, but he makes interesting But that's the thing. He actually kind of doesn't, does he? He makes champions that basically don't work, then adds a bunch of passives to those champions to add a whole bunch of invisible power, to add a whole bunch of, like, wouldn't that be neat power? I mean, here, let's look at Warwick. I'm gonna use Warwick as an example. Now, here's the thing about Warwick. This is actually one of the more simple designs you've done. But actually stop and look at how absurd Warwick actually is. Warwick's basic attacks deal 10 to 44 bonus magic damage on hit. Okay. Below 50% health, he's also healed the amount of post-mitigation damage it deals. Okay. This healing is increased by 150% while below 25% maximum health. Okay. So his passive has a passive, which has a passive. Warwick dashes unstoppably to the target and bites them, dealing magic damage, applying on-hit effects, and healing himself a portion of the damage dealt. Okay. If Jaws of the Beast is held, Warwick will lock his teeth into the target and use them to swing himself around to their far side. Okay. Warwick is unable to act while swinging around his target and will move wherever they move until he jumps off. Warwick cannot be displaced while attached to an enemy. Okay, I mean, it's his main ability, so it makes sense. It's a little bit more complicated. Warwick senses all enemy champions below 50% of their maximum health, marking them as blood hunted, as well as highlighted their position to his team. Warwick additionally sees a blood trail highlighting the shortest path to the blood hunted target and gains bonus movement speed while following it. Warwick gains bonus attack speed upon attacking a blood hunted target or an enemy unit below 50% of their maximum health. The bonus movement speed and attack speed is increased by 150% against enemies below 20% maximum health. Active. Warwick briefly senses all enemies and then blood hunts the nearest enemy champion with a large radius for 8 seconds, regardless of their current health. After being in combat with the champion, blood hunt may only be activated passively for 3 seconds. The bonus movement speed will also be lost for 0.5 seconds, but will build up again every 0.25 seconds over the next 3.5 seconds. Simple enough. Do you see what I mean, though? Do you see what I mean? And by he, I mean CertainlyT, basically adds all the shit to the champions he designs. He just keeps adding and adding and adding and adding and adding and adding and adding all these weird, janky mechanics. Like, okay, let's imagine this for a second. Let's imagine Aatrox is a CertainlyT champion. His E-healing is doubled when below 25% HP. Also, his ultimate stuns the nearest enemy champion below 37.2% health if it's a Wednesday. His Q on the crit zone heals him for an additional amount, in addition to the E, in addition to the passive. The passive, which now procs on his Q, but only on the crits, but applies half damage, but goes on half the cooldown, but also the next Q resets the cooldown fully. His W now is his second passive. Oh, no, first passive, because his W doesn't have a passive yet. Every 5 minion takedowns, Aatrox gains 1 bonus HP. Every auto attack will deal his bonus HP and damage, but only if he's gotten 50 bonus HP from his W. Upon dying, though, you lose all that bonus HP, unless you get a takedown within 5 seconds of dying. But if you kill 3 enemies without dying, you lose the entirety of your bonus HP as well. Does his ult have a passive yet? Oh, we can stuff one in there. His ultimate has a passive. If you activate this ability below 50% HP after taking damage within the last 3 seconds from an opposing turret, the next turret will be shut down for 3 seconds after auto-attacking it. Now remember, if you auto-attack it, your W bonus damage is tripled and becomes true damage against the turret, but it only applies once every 3 minutes. His passive now has a second passive. Your passive marks the opposing champions that your next passive does double the damage, but only heals for half the amount, unless you've marked your target with your Q. If you use your Q to proc your passive, which I explained earlier, does half the damage, but will do double the damage if the previous passive, it now does the entire damage without doing half the healing. It now does double the healing, which I mentioned before, it is half the healing, but now it's double the healing on the passive. Now, I want everyone to know there's a special condition. If you use E before proccing your passive will do 30% bonus damage, which multiplies with the bonus damage from having procced your passive. So it does 260% damage, but it heals for half that amount. Now, that half that amount is additive, so it actually heals for 130%, unless you proc it with your Q before proccing your passive the second time, because then your passive will heal for the full amount. So your passive will heal on double the double damage, which will actually be 260% healing from your passive, which also is 260% damage. If you're in your ult, you get more healing from it, and also your ult now has a special synergy that your W bonus HP... And CertainlyT's sitting there like clapping to herself, yay! Except the thing is, when you compare it to a Kali, you're actually like, oh, that's not that weird. Your E throws a shuriken. Yeah, it's close enough. Yeah, okay. It does damage. Okay. And if it marks a target by dealing damage to them, you can then activate this ability a second time to dash towards them. Makes sense. But also, you can use your shuriken on your shroud so that you can go back to your shroud. If you hit your shroud with your shuriken, you can gap close to the shroud. Makes sense to me. And now remember, with the old Akali kit, remember, doing all of this would, shit. Remember, all of this used to also interact with her old shroud, which increased in duration if you ran in and out of it. So all of this actually sounds even stupider when you think about it that way. Like, why is that shroud thing interacting with her E? Because the thing was, you would E out of the shroud, which would bring you out of stealth, but would put you in the shroud, so the shroud would increase in duration, but then you would be back in the shroud after you gap close, so now you'd be out of the shroud, into the shroud, 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 out of the shroud, in shroud, 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 in, out, shroud, in, out, shroud, in, out, shroud. You have to be kidding me. Fuck off. Really? Well, I mean, it was funny at first, sure. You know, CertainlyT champions, oh, they've got a lot of mechanics. But now it's like, okay, but maybe we don't just keep churning out champions that break the competitive scene over and fucking over. What? What just happened? Okay, so we knew they were pushing. I walked out to get vision because I knew I was a tank, so I was like, this is fine if I get caught, you know, I'm a tank. I broke his thing. They lantern in. Oh, I already missed it. What the fuck happened to Kaisa? So at this point, Syndra hasn't even hit anyone yet. It feels so weird to me that Syndra can be so fed and not do anything.